Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Harvard John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences PhD hooding ceremony. Today we celebrate our amazing PhD recipients. I'm John Jarash, the Director of Graduate Education, and I want to say to our graduates how proud I am of each one of you. I can't think of a cohort who has had a bigger impact on their fellow students and on the school as a whole. All of you are impressive, are inspirations even, for persevering through the pandemic times in your research and studies. And many of you stepped up to become true leaders within the school by fostering community for your fellow students, by creating emotional and mental health support structures for your peers before, during, and after the pandemic times, and by advocating to those of us whose job it is to make this place run, to make it run better. Your efforts during your time here at SEAS will continue to be an inspiration and to bear fruit long after you go out into the world to make it a better place too. Yeah, I think that, yeah, good for you. This is truly an amazing group. To all our graduates' families, friends, and loved ones, thank you for supporting them during their years here at SEAS. And whether you traveled and braved the crowds to be here or are attending remotely, we are honored by your presence with us today. And I also want to recognize the staff at SEAS who devote themselves professionally every day to supporting our PhD students, and in particular, Erin Bishop, Marie Dooley, Lisa Frazier, Tricia Jacome, Mary Catherine Juskowitz, Keith Karasek, and Harrison Nichols. Emma Dench and the Harvard Griffin GSAS deans send their regards and regrets with all the cascading delays through the day, which you all were, experienced. They didn't want to hold us up even further, and so we're starting without them. So our program today starts with remarks from Dean Frank Doyle of SEAS, followed by the reading of our graduates' names by SEAS Director of Admissions Julie Holbrook, as the graduates are hooded by their advisors and area chairs. So it is my honor to introduce the Dean of SEAS, Armstrong Professor of Engineering and Applied Sciences, Frank Doyle.
Well, thank you, John. It's my pleasure to add my welcome to all of you here as well. Those of you gathered under the tent in Austin and those of you far-flung televising remotely in here. Today we celebrate the doctoral candidates of the Harvard John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, or as we like to call ourselves, SEAS. We honor these outstanding scholars' accomplishments and, I hasten to add, their resilience in overcoming extraordinary circumstances during these past several years. Earning the highest academic degree conferred by Harvard is a singular accomplishment, the result of many, 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 many long hours of arduous work. It's the culmination of an ambitious intellectual journey. The path that each of you traveled was unique, but you all share one thing in common. Earning your degree was made possible by the support, encouragement, and guidance of many people. Everyone who joined the celebration with us here today, along with many others who cannot be with us. So because there can never be enough applause on graduation day, let's have one more round of applause, graduates, for those who helped you. In particular, I want to acknowledge the members of the SEAS faculty. Serving as advisors and doing it well is demanding work. Faculty have labs to run, courses to teach, grants to manage, papers to write, experiments to perform, code to run, and also families to attend to for many of us. Together, though, at SEAS, we've made mentoring and advising a priority. Now, there may be a G7 or higher amongst you out there here today graduating. I can relate. I, too, am ending an 8-year journey, and I, too, will be graduating this year, the ultimate G8. Some of you may have heard at the end of June, I will be concluding my tenure here as SEAS Dean to take on the role of Provost at Brown University. And that move is bittersweet. I'm sad to leave C's at a moment when the school is poised for a truly exciting next chapter. And I'm excited about the new opportunities and challenges that await me a mere 45 minutes away in Providence. You know, one of the things that some of my new colleagues at Brown have been sort of quietly whispering prior to my arrival is, will an engineer as provost really get the importance of liberal arts? And I know many of you have heard me talk about this. I've stated many times over my tenure here. That is our secret sauce in C's. Being embedded in a world-class liberal arts institution, we thrive at working at that nexus between technology and the social sciences, the arts, the humanities. And of course, it's equally important that the non-technical domains embrace the power of science and technology to tackle some of today's most difficult challenges. Science and technology can enable profound positive change. All of you know this. You've invested your academic career now over several years working on this. You've been a part of it. We need more of it. Friends, there are plenty of tough challenges out there, problems that demand the critical thinking as well as innovative spirit of each and every one of you. The world needs advances in renewable energy and carbon removal technologies to make our planet more livable. We need creative approaches to tissue engineering to help reduce human suffering and prevent deaths from chronic diseases. We need next-generation comms and networking technology, including quantum modalities, to enable access to modern digital life for billions of people. We need to devise and, importantly, manage artificial intelligence in ways that advance breakthroughs in science and technology while ensuring fair and equitable practices, while being ever mindful of unintended consequences. Always remember that engineering and applied sciences are part of the solution, but just a part. We need the imagination of a new generation of practitioners from all disciplines to dream of better ways of doing things, to shape the world we want. We need artists, designers, storytellers, historians, economists, and many others. But make no mistake, you must be a partner at that table. Your potential to make powerful, consequential impact on the world is truly unlimited. So let me conclude with two final thoughts for our PhD students here today. Both deal with opportunity and responsibility. First, reflect on the role that your advisors played in the journey that has led you to this moment. You are now in a position to be able to offer that inspiration, that guidance to the next generation. You have the power and indeed the responsibility to make a difference in the life of a future engineer or applied scientist. Second, remember that Harvard's strength as an institution is derived from the active engagement of those who came before us. Each of you leaves with the skills and knowledge to make the world a better and more interesting place. And that can be a full-time job. But I urge you, stay connected. Remain a part of this extraordinary intellectual community. Continue to find ways to contribute to the teaching and the learning and the research that happens here in C's. It will advance C's, and I promise it will enrich you. So on the last occasion of my being able to do this, I say congratulations to all of you amazing and talented PhD students.
Thank you, Dean Doyle, for your leadership and wisdom and geniality for the last 8 years, which were surely the most interesting of times. And best wishes as you take up the post at Brown. We will miss you. As we get ready for our graduates to cross the stage and be hooded by their advisors, I'd like to give a special shout out to computer science graduate Yaniv Jacobi, recipient of the inaugural Area Chair Student Award for Computer Science Teaching and Advising. Yaniv is being recognized for his leadership and dedication in co-designing and teaching Computer Science 290, a seminar for first-year PhD students on effective research practices and academic culture, and for his instrumental actions in fostering and sustaining the C's In Touch peer support network for graduate students. This was just announced, so let's celebrate Yaniv. and we now happily commence the hooding of the 2023 SEAS PhD graduates. It is my great pleasure to invite to the lectern SEAS Director of Graduate Admissions, Julie Holbrook.
When I first started, I didn't need these glasses. Several years later now, I do. Thank you, John. The moment we have all been waiting for. We are going to begin hooding and celebrating the 2023 SEAS PhD candidates. We will begin with the students earning the degree in applied mathematics. And on behalf of Area Chair Petros Koumoutsakos, Professor Cengiz Pehlivan will step to the front of the stage, right around that X. Wael Al-Ghamdi. Wael will be hooded by Professor Cengiz Pehlivan on behalf of Professor Flavio Calmon. Simon Lutz Batzner will be hooded by Professor El Mahadevan. Oh, I'm sorry, will be hooded by Professor Cengiz Pehlivan. Peter Brida, who will be hooded by Professor El Mahadevan. Edward Novikov, who will be hooded by Professor Cengiz Pehlivan on behalf of Professors Peter Sorger and Tim Kixiris. Irina Tolkova, who will be hooded by Professor El Mahadevan. And Jordan Ruth Margaret Kennedy. Jordan's actually earning her degree in engineering sciences, material science, but Maha is standing on the stage, so we're going to have her go now. Next. This concludes recognizing the doctoral candidates in applied mathematics. We will continue with the students earning the degree in applied physics, and Area Chair Lena Howe will step to the front of the stage. Jennifer Bogdan Coulter will be hooded by Professor Lena Howe on behalf of Professor Boris Kaczynski. Hansei Jung. Hansei will be hooded by Professor Lena Howe on behalf of Professor Don Hee Ham. Dmitry Kazakov, who will be hooded by Professor Federico Capasso. He did his homework. Olivia Mello, who will be hooded by Professor Lena Howe on behalf of Professor Eric Mazur. Aditya Ranganathan, who will be hooded by Professor El Mahadavan. Mehdi Rayazi, who will be hooded by Professor Lena Howe on behalf of Professor Philip Kim. Eric Ruiz. Eric will be hooded by Professor Lena Howe on behalf of Professor David Waits. And An Zaidi, who will be hooded by Professor Federico Capasso. This concludes recognizing the doctoral students in applied physics. We will continue with the students earning the degree in computer science. And Area Chair Stuart Schieber will step to the front of the stage. Daniel Benga Alabi will be hooded by Professor Salil Vadan. Mitali Bafna. Mitali will be hooded by Professor Madhu Sudan. Chining Chow, who will be hooded by Professor Boaz Barak. Yun Tieng Deng, who will be hooded by Professor Stuart Schieber. Jin Dong, who will be hooded by Professor Stuart Schieber on behalf of Professor H.T. Kung. Moritz Braula, who will be hooded by Professor Robert Wood. Udit Gupta, who will be hooded by Professor Guyan Wee. Xiang Su, who will be hooded by Professor Stuart Schieber on behalf of Professor Flavio Calmon. Jackson Albert Killian, who will be hooded by Professor Milan Tambe. Milan, stay there. Aditya Meiti, who will be hooded by Milan Tambi. William Lo Tien, who will be hooded by Professor Eddie Kohler. Excuse me for 1 second. Jayshree Sarathi, who will be hooded by Professor Salil Vadan and Jonathan Zittrain. Kai Wong, who will be hooded by Professor Milan Tambi. This concludes recognizing the doctoral students in computer science. We will continue with the students earning the degree in engineering sciences, bioengineering. Area Chair Jennifer Lewis will step to the front of the stage. John Orenz will be hooded by Professor Jennifer Lewis. Alexander Michael Carreri, who will be hooded by Professor Samir Mitragotri. Edward Guzman, who will be hooded by Professor Jennifer Lewis on behalf of Professors Daniel Anderson and David Waits. Yutong Liu, who will be hooded by Professor David Mooney. Sean Kim, who will be hooded by Professor Kevin Kit Parker. Katerina Kroll, who will be hooded by Professor Jennifer Lewis. Miguel Sobral, who will be hooded by Professor David Mooney. Ninad Aniruddha Kombochkar, who will be hooded by Professor Samir Mitragotri. Stephanie Lee McNamara, who will be hooded by Professor David Mooney. This concludes recognizing the doctoral students in engineering sciences, bioengineering. We will continue with the students earning the degree in engineering sciences, electrical engineering. And Professor Guyan Wee will step to the front of the stage on behalf of Area Chair Marco Lonkar. Henry Julian Hinton will be hooded by Professor Guyan Wei on behalf of Professor Don Hee Ham. Thierry Tembe will be hooded by Professor Guyan Wei. Baharat Talumshams will be hooded by Professor Demba Ba. The engineers have this down. Jia Wei Zhou will be hooded by Professor Guyan Wei. This concludes recognizing the doctoral students in electrical engineering. We will continue with the students earning the degree in engineering sciences, environmental science, and engineering. Area Chair Frank Hoyt will step to the front of the stage. Amy Zumari Bonilla will be hooded by Dr. Loretta Mickley. Hannah Obermiller-Nesser will be hooded by Dr. Loretta Mickley on behalf of Professor Danielle Jacob. Matthew Paul Stewart will be hooded by Professor Frank Koich on behalf of Professor Scott Martin. Hong Wei Sun will be hooded by Professor Frank Koich on behalf of Professor David Keith. This concludes recognizing the doctoral students in environmental science and engineering, and we will continue with the students earning the degree in material science and mechanical engineering, and Area Chair Michael Aziz will step to the front of the stage. Jen-Won Chong will be hooded by Professor Connor Walsh. Elizabeth Gallardo Hevia will be hooded by Professor Robert Wood. Shi Jianjin will be hooded by Professor Michael Aziz. Jason Steck will be hooded by Professor Jos Vlasic on behalf of Professor Zhigang Shuo. Robert Douglas Weeks will be hooded by Professor Jennifer Lewis. And Zolt Turdik will be hooded by Professor Franz Spoppen. Zolt is earning his degree in applied physics. This concludes the 2023 CEAS Doctoral Hooding Celebration Ceremony. By the power invested in me, hearty congratulations, graduates. That's right. As Dean Doyle alluded to earlier, a very reasonable number of years ago, we added your name to our list of incoming students. More recently, we excitedly and wistfully added your name to our list of graduating students. Wistfully because we're going to miss you. We hope your time at CEAS was valuable and challenging, supportive, life-changing, maybe fun. We hope you got to experience amazing science and amazing friendships. We hope you saw the White Mountains and the Green Mountains, Cape Ann, Cape Cod, the Public Garden. I know John saw the TD Garden. If you were really lucky, you may have seen Taylor Swift last weekend. Some of you saw snow for the first time, and then you saw it again and again and again. Today, we tip our caps and raise a glass to our graduates. Our thanks to the CEAS faculty and staff who made this event possible. And our thanks to our graduates for choosing CEAS all those very reasonable number of years ago and making this a better place for you having studied here. Please join us for a celebration following under this tent and in the yard. Guests, please remain seated while our graduates recess. Congratulations.